The next few lectures, we are going to start talking about JavaScript objects. If you've done other programming languages, you'll know that objects form a core concept in any programming language. It's the same in JavaScript, except that JavaScript objects are very different from objects you might have encountered in Java or C++. So pay close attention. Now, an object often reminds me of this particular story. A committee was asked to describe an elephant. They were all blindfolded and situated on different parts of the elephant. And each of them were convinced that they were right. The person at the trunk says it's a garden hose because that's what he could feel. The person near the feet of the elephant, near the legs of the elephant, was convinced that the elephant was a pillar. He was right in his own way as well. The person at the tail of an elephant was convinced that the elephant was exactly like a rope. The person on top of an elephant and feeling the broad back of an elephant was convinced that the elephant was a wall, probably a brick wall. And the last member of the committee, who felt the ears of an elephant, was convinced it was a fan. Why this talk of elephants? The reason we talk of elephants when we are describing objects is just like an elephant, an object is many things to many people. Objects are like elephants. They mean all kinds of things to different people and they are powerful. This is a JavaScript class. So let's focus on what an object means in JavaScript. An object is a set of key value pairs where the values can also be functions. The values in this set of key value pairs can be values such as strings, numbers, booleans, etc. They can also be functions. This is the best way to describe a JavaScript object. If you've come from other worlds and you know what objects are in C++, Java, etc., lay all that aside. A JavaScript object is a set of key value pairs. It's a very different way of thinking. So you C++, Java or Python programmers out there, leave aside your preconceptions about an object and learn afresh as to what JavaScript objects really are. An object is a set of key value pairs where the values can also be functions. A set of key value pairs. That means an object can have 0 or more key value pairs. So what are these key value pairs? An object has a bunch of information, and the information that the object holds is its value. Each bit of information that an object holds can be looked up or accessed by a specific name, and those names form the keys of an object. The bunch of information that an object holds is the values in an object. Those are the values which are contained in an object. How we access this information? This information is looked up by name. Each bit of information has a name associated with it, and that is the name we use to look up that information. These form the keys of an object. Each key value pair in an object has a very specific term used to refer to it. A key value pair is called a property of an object. We'll be using this term over and over again. In fact, we've used it in examples past. It's an important term. Make a note of it. A key value pair is called a property of an object. Going back to our definition, let's see some of the interesting things which we haven't yet noted. Values can also be functions. This is interesting. This is interesting because the values are not just values in the form of string values, boolean values, number values, and so on. Functions in JavaScript can be values just like strings or numbers. This is not true in all programming languages, so it's an important point to note. Functions in JavaScript are first-class functions. The term first-class functions means that three specific properties are satisfied by functions, which are also satisfied by numbers and strings. Functions, just like numbers and strings, can be assigned to a variable. They can be returned as a return value from a function, and they can be passed in as an argument to a function. These three properties make functions in JavaScript first-class functions. Once you internalize the concept of functions in JavaScript being first-class functions, a lot of things start to make much more sense. It makes complete sense that values in an object can be functions, just like numbers, strings, or any other first-class citizens. Let's summarize what we've learned so far. We've seen that an object in JavaScript is a set of key value pairs where values can also be functions. This is the best way to describe a JavaScript object, and it's completely different from the way C++ or Java or Python objects are defined. Now, it may happen that you've come into this world of JavaScript after having programmed in Python, C++, or Java. JavaScript can be pretty mind-bending to those programmers. Now, if you have indeed come from the world of C++, Java, or Python, here is a little bit of information to help you make the transition to JavaScript objects. For those who've never worked in Python, C++, or Java before, you can simply skip this section and then move on to the bits after the recap. So let's plunge right in and see what the differences are between JavaScript objects and Python, C++, and Java objects. Let's say you come from the world of Python. Thinking about objects in JavaScript is very different from thinking about objects in Python. If you know Python, an object in JavaScript is basically a Python dictionary. You know the dictionary class in Python, you know how it stores key value pairs. That's exactly what a JavaScript object is. The keys are called properties, and the values associated with those keys can also be functions. That's the difference between a Python dictionary and a JavaScript object. At its core, in the heart, a JavaScript object is very similar to a Python dictionary. Rather than Python, if you come from a world of C++ and Java, once again, it's a very different way of thinking about objects in JavaScript than in C++ or Java. If you know Java or C++, completely forget about classes. We talk about classes being a template for how an object sets up, private, protected, etc. Completely forget about those. JavaScript has objects but no classes. Interestingly enough, JavaScript does have some kind of concept of inheritance. However, it happens via prototypes. There's not an inbuilt class which supports inheritance. JavaScript objects are nothing like C++ or Java objects. In Java and C++, we talk a lot about member functions and member variables. Member functions and member variables within JavaScript are both just called properties. A member function or a member variable is simply a property in JavaScript. There is no separation beyond that. Properties in JavaScript, properties of an object, are usually public, but it's possible to make them private or protected by using closures. You have to do some tricky things using closures to make them private or protected. It is possible though. Remember this for now, we'll talk about this again later. Properties of an object can be added or removed on the fly. Once again, this is completely different from Java or C++. at runtime, you can't define new properties or new member variables or new member functions for a particular object in Java or C++. In JavaScript, you can. Properties can be added or removed on the fly. And lastly, constructors for an object are static and they reside outside the object. There is no concept of an object definition or a template of a class or a class definition. There is just a static constructor which sits outside of the object. So as you can see, there are a whole bunch of reasons why a JavaScript object is very different from a Java or a C++ object.